One past. I think more people will just join as we go on. But hey everyone, good morning. Thank you for those who joined so early, the second time. I'm happy to see you all here. So thank you, Maris and Louise, for switching on your cameras, and Katrina. Thank you, guys. Others, we would be really happy if you follow their example, because it's just much nicer to engage when you see that it's a real person there. Yeah. So if others could switch on their cameras, that would be really, really nice. So this is our third week together with you already. So for those who switch on cameras, I already have a feeling that I know you, and from the questions that you ask, so that's really nice. And yeah, today we have Peter. Then on Wednesday we will have Eva, who will talk about communications. And then on Thursday you'll have a session with me and Kristaps, who will be helping me, joining as a guest lecturer, and it's going to be on branding. So I think it's an exciting week, 3 lectures in 4 days. So you're going to get a lot of knowledge. So yeah, don't forget that we are still tracking who's joining and who's not. And we are also tracking who's sending in the one-pagers afterwards. So yeah, pay attention, ask questions, be active, and enjoy. And that's it from me. Floor is yours, Peter.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Paula. And so I come to you from the Hawaiian Islands once again. If you weren't here last week, I'm out here in Hawaii. I used to live in Silicon Valley, I remain on the resident in faculty in residence. I'm a professor at RBS, sort of, kind of. So every once in a while when they want me to do an online course, I will do that. So you'll probably see my face around if I don't visit. Today, basically last week, we really talked about the value proposition. Today, I really want to go through creating your startup pitch. Excuse me, P-I-T-C-H. And the pitch is what is going to be your initial sales piece. In fact, all of your sales, the product or service sales, really come from your pitch. And that's why it's important to kind of begin to structure, and I'm going to give you some structure today on how to be successful. Now, a couple of you had, if I remember correctly, apps, which are kind of more the technology side. Maris has his cookies. We had a couple of other folks that had very interesting products. Didn't hear everybody, and that's fine. So as we go through this, and I'm going to open it up in just a second, if you have any questions from last time, let's ask them now. And if you have any questions about today, I mean, not so much what we're going to do, but any specific questions, I'd love to hear them now before we jump into all this. So let me be quiet for a second. Any questions from everybody here? We got, by the way, 31 people, so plenty folks to ask questions. Go ahead. Everybody is bashful. Ansi, any questions? No? We're good? All right. You guys are a tough crowd. All right, so I will go then begin the process. If you do have questions during the session, just ping me, or you can put it off to the chat on the side in Zoom. And oh, one other item, a couple of people had asked for my list of books. And actually I spoke too soon and I didn't have the list of books all typed out for you. So that's what I just talked to Paula. I'll make sure and get it to her. But there's some very interesting books that I think that you'll find interesting. A lot of paperback books, a lot of electronic books. I'll try to keep it as cheap as possible, not give you all the €50 books out there. So when you get it, just know that the list could be probably triple the size. But I'll give you about a dozen books that you can take a look at and really get some good hints and so forth. So let's talk about the startup pitch. First of all, really, what is it? You need to start. So many people start with a flawed formula. They start with the product itself. You know, I'm making a brand new type of raincoat for 45 euros for children and 55 euros for adults. Yeah, okay. And going back to last week, what's the value? Why? What's the problem that you're trying to create a solution for? So your pitch is the grand vision. This is where I want to be in 10 years. Now, I know a lot of you are going, I don't know what I'm going to do in 10 days. And I understand that part. But I need you to start thinking about future situations. And that's going to come across in your pitch. So when we start, go ahead. Question? No. All right. So the classic example is in 1998, Brian and Paige of Google fame basically were at a party in Silicon Valley. Remember, they were just doing this out of their dorm room at Stanford University. And essentially, they were asked, what's this Google thing? And he says, quote, we're basically trying to capture the world's information, organizing it, and make it universally accessible to everybody. What does that mean? Didn't make any difference. That's the beginning of their pitch. That's how Google started. And so we have a situation where people get a little bit scared about talking about in the clouds and kind of cosmically. If I'm to use Morris, his organic cookies, the future speak of his cookies might be that one day we will be free of all chemicals in our food stock. This is just the beginning. Something like that. He hasn't really put a date on it, but it is in the future. And we know, all of us on this line right now, know that's not going to happen, you know, like tomorrow. You also need to start your pitch at the bottom. You need to start with your current situation. I'm working out of my father's den, and I'm assembling each one of my product by hand. Really? Because that's going to generate questions from angel investors and possible customers. Can you scale up? Can you make a whole bunch of stuff if you got a big order in through the internet or, you know, somebody knocking on your door? Really, the next thing that you need to make sure you do is explain what you do. Remember, I talked about the basis was this idea of what are you trying to solve? You got a product. What's that product supposed to solve? And so that's where you really want to start. You want to tell the listener exactly what it is you do. And you don't want to get real sexy. You don't want to throw lots of big. You're not going to impress anybody. Basically, what Google said was, we're a website with a text box, and it lets you search for things. There's nothing sexy about that at all, except that today, or I should say, Friday, they were valued at about $850 billion US dollars. So here's their initial pitch that talked about a website with a text box where you go search for things on the internet, and it's called a search engine. That has got them almost $1 trillion US valuation. I'm hoping that every single one of you creates $1 trillion company. That would be great, because I hope you know if you go over $1 billion or €1 billion, I automatically get 5% for just consulting fees. I didn't even get a smile out of anybody. Too early in the morning? Okay, all right. After you explain what you do, you want to make sure that you demonstrate value. And how do you demonstrate value? You want to make sure that you are, you're comparing yourself in a nice way, not real negative, but in a nice way against your competitors. So if you've got an app that does Y, you need to talk about the reason that I created this app was to actually address 2 additional things that my competitor app, App X, doesn't have right now. I have added value. Explain what you've added to your product. And that becomes important, because that's when people go, ooh, maybe I should buy a couple, check it out, and maybe I should buy a whole bunch if I really like it. People want to buy value. Maris, don't get wiggy about this, but people don't care about cookies. What they care about, and I want everybody to listen to this carefully, what they care about is the value you bring. What is the experience? Are you going to see angels if you eat this cookie? I suppose if it's laced with marijuana. But other than that, it's organic. It's from the earth. It's without chemicals. That's the value part. We can go to Remy any day of the week and get all sorts of different kinds of cookies. So you want to demonstrate value. You want to compare yourself in a nice way against your competition, and not all the competition. How many people make cookies? Oh, I think if I remember correctly in the Remy store, I saw probably 3 dozen different brands. And so, you know, you don't want to go and say, well, and we do this against this brand and this against another brand. Just pick 2 or 3 that are close to what you're trying to do. The next question that everybody's going to ask is, can I trust you? And better yet, the better question is, why should I trust you? And so let me just tell you that by being a part of Junior Achievement Latvia, that is, believe it or not, that is a big gold star, especially in the business community. So you are not, if some of you are kind of rolling your eyes going, yes, well, I thought I'd join this and see what it was all about. The idea of the trust factor when you're making a pitch is real important. What are your credentials? Well, your credentials are, well, I'm 15, I'm 16, I'm 17, and I'm going to bring world peace to everybody. No one's going to believe you. No one's going to trust you. That's just not plausible. If you're putting together an app and you go and create this compare and contrast against competitors, but you follow up by saying, I may be young, but I'm part of an organization which is nationally based, and we're getting some of the best training that is available for any of this. So the person that's evaluating you is going to be impressed that you're getting training, that you're committing yourself, and that you're giving time and energy to not only creating a really good product, but understanding your market. Other ways that you can get credibility, and this is really important, and you'll get a little bit more of this, I guess, on Wednesday and Thursday when Paula and my other colleagues come and talk about communications and branding. So I won't spend too much time on social media. But one of the things that you need to start doing is you need to put together a social media calendar. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, people always say, well, I'll just, I made a new batch. I'll just put pictures and tweet it out. No. You want to make sure that you tweet something on Tuesdays and Fridays. You want to make sure that you have an Instagram picture or pictures on every Wednesday morning. You want to make sure that you have your Facebook and you respond to at least 3 or 4 comments that are left on your Facebook page by Saturday. These are all part of the calendar. And now all of a sudden, people are going to go, wow, this guy's really responsive, or this gal. We love that. Believe it or not, people really like that. Go ahead. Question? No. Okay. So, and so I know some of you are rolling your eyes going, yes, but Peter, you're so old and we are so young and we understand social media and you do not. I'm going to beg to differ with you just for a second. I've written 2 books on social media management, and I actually started in 1996. Probably none of you are born or just born. Putting together electronic communities in a place on the web called talkcity.com. Doesn't exist anymore, but that was the beginnings of basically what Facebook is today. So this idea, I've been kind of playing with it on a regular basis. And the number of likes is sort of important, but you're going to get likes when you go respond to Mary or Joe who just left a comment. And even if it's a bad comment, your app really is slow. Well, gosh, Armands, I really am sorry that it's slow on your system. We found a couple of bugs, and if you come back next Wednesday, we're going to have an update. You can personally write me at, I'll make sure that you get the update sent directly to you. So you took a negative social media comment and you turned it around so that now all of a sudden they're waiting for Wednesday. Cool. Maybe I'll try it again. So here's the fact of the matter is, people come to your website, or people come to Facebook, your Facebook company page, or they follow you on Instagram, or they follow you on Twitter and other platforms because they're interested. They may not buy it yet, but they're interested. And I can't emphasize that enough. They want to make sure that this looks kind of cool. And this guy's from, Yumala. And so are my parents. I wonder if they know him. This is kind of cool. Now all of a sudden they start creating these connections. That's what the pitch is all about. Now, the next item, the next area in terms of your pitch is that you want to build understanding and a relationship. What do I mean by that? Paula and I haven't actually physically met, but Claudio actually got me, introduced me. She and I have had several conversations since, and we talked about weather, we talked about COVID-19, we talked about all sorts of things. I have a really good kind of now, I'm building a relationship with her. Morris, I've been talking about your cookies both days. I'm guessing that we probably will have a very good lunch when I come to Riga and just sit down and talk about all sorts of stuff. We have some things in common. And this goes for everybody. You want to make sure it may sound a little bit funny, but you want to make sure that you build your network. And when you build your network, Highness, it's two-way. And this is real hard for a startup. That is listening. I want each of you to learn how to listen. Now, yes, I know you're listening to me right now. I'm talking about your customers. If your customer comes and says, I really like that sweater that you're trying to sell. It looks really cool, but it's in blue and I'm not a big fan of blue. Are you going to ever do it in red? Your response should not be no, or, like later, we're trying to sell. Understand what that guy's actually saying. I probably am going to be a customer because I like the design. I like the engineering of it. I like the material. When you've got a different color, could you make sure and just let me know? I don't need a red one tomorrow, but if you go red in the next month, can you just send me a quick email? That's all that he wants. So when Eurus says to you, is it possible you could add a contact us button on your app? What's your response? Yes, but it is in our timeline. And that leads me to actually there are two more, managing objectives, and then we got to close the whole thing down. So a lot of startups will say, I just don't have time. Oh my gosh, this is just like, or I don't have the money. I've already put 200 euros into this whole thing and I got like 25 euros left. I have no money. And what's interesting here is that you're giving them the reason you cannot go forward. They didn't ask you about going forward or going backward. They asked for a particular item. Maris, could you think about maybe putting raisins in your cookies? The response is, I just don't have the money to buy, raisins right now. A better response is going to be in your pitch. We have a timeline of features that we're going to be adding to our product. So by this time in May, we will add raisins, and by this time in June, we will add walnuts. Now people have this idea, this timeline that they can kind of go, oh, cool, I'll buy a couple now, but I'm really going to wait for walnuts. When we start talking about technology and apps or these kinds of things, I had one student in the last cohort that was making soap. And they made soap in the form or the shape of various desserts. So they had a piece of pie, they had a bigger piece of cake. These are just soap you can use in the shower. And they were great. And so I was listening to the pitch and somebody from the back raised their hand and said yes. And they said, could you make a cobbler? And the two ladies, it was a pair of ladies, stood up there and went, I don't know what a cobbler is. That's okay, except to say that what's important for that reaction is we're going to be adding a whole bunch of different shapes over the next 6 months. If I can get your name and email, I'd like to write you a quick email, and maybe you could explain or send me a picture of what you're thinking about. Because remember, the soap has to be able to fit in your hand. Now you've taken it away from cobbler, you've taken it away from peach cobbler or cherry cobbler. You're having that person do some of your work. And so when you manage objectives, you need to have your customer do some of the work for you. Ask them, say, could you write down, you know, that concept for me and send me an email? Here's my card, or here's my email address. I'd love to hear more about it. And that person will sit down at his or her computer and type you a couple of very nice paragraphs going, God, it was so nice, Ansi, that, you know, to have met you. I really liked it. And here's my description. I don't think I did a good job at your seminar today, but here's what I was thinking. And Ansi's just going to write back going, oh my God, Ricardo, this is wonderful. It's a little bit out of the scope of what we're trying to do right now, but I'm thinking probably within 2 to 3 months, we could go and tackle your idea. I'll keep you posted. Now Ricardo is just absolutely just in love with the product. Okay? Finally, we need to go for the close. Every pitch, this is where startups absolutely fail. Oh my God, they fail. You need to be able to bring it around and say, essentially, what would it take for you to become a customer of me? Ask them. Ask them that question. That becomes the important part. And I'll tell you why. Because in Google's case, they kept on saying, hey, what's it going to take for you to come use our search engine? And people would say, it sounds really interesting, but right now I'm going to stick with Ask Jeeves, which was a popular search engine back in the day. And you should always consider that's not the end. It's really only the beginning, because Google is the largest search engine in the world today. They just kept at it. And I have communicated with people who have asked me to do some writing for them. I told you I did some consulting on the writing and grant proposals and so forth. And they came back, this one guy came back and said, when he asked me for a bid, a proposal. And I said, well, it's going to cost you 5% of the grant because you don't have any money up front. So he wrote me back and he says, that's too steep, that's too expensive. I like what you had, I liked everything that you told me about, but that's kind of expensive. And I said, nope, I understand. And he says, I'm going to go with somebody else. He said, but we're going to have a few grant proposals. So let me get back to you. But that's fine. I was hoping I didn't lose a customer, but that's fine. It wasn't 3 weeks later that he came back and said, Peter, I'm going to give you your 5% and I'm going to work with you and I'm going to assign Marianne to you, who's our fiscal officer. I said, wow, you haven't seen my full proposal. And he said, I had 2 people come in. I've gone through 2 other people and they actually wanted some cash up front. They lied about a couple of items. And he says, I didn't get any of that from you. At the end of that process, I wrote the proposal. I actually wrote 2 proposals. We didn't get 1 proposal, but the other proposal was for $100,000 US. So we sent it in. He knew my commission. And about 6 weeks later, I get a check in the mail for $5,000 US. That was my 5% commission. And he said, thank you very, very much. I don't think we would have got this money without you. That's the relationship. I want everybody to start thinking about relationship. And I want you to ask at the end of every conversation, what's it going to take for you to become a customer? All right, so let me go over just very quickly kind of the process. First, explain what you do. Keep it simple. Don't go sexy on me. Don't need it. I want you to demonstrate value. I want to know why your product is a really good product. I want you to create credibility. I want you to understand your competition. I want you to build understanding with your customers. I want you to listen. I want you to make sure that you have a timeline and that you share that timeline in your relationship building with your potential customers. Because as you're listening, if they say blah, blah, you can go, that's about 4 months out, but it's very interesting. Can I get back to you with details? Wow, fantastic. And then finally, I want you to go for the close. I want you to close up your pitch by asking them, what's it going to take? So that, my friends, is basically the startup pitch, your product pitch. I need you to continue to really think about the value proposition. I really need you to think about listening to your customers. And I really want you to believe in your product. One of the things that we know about Bening and Paige is the fact that both of them really believed in their search engine. They just thought that their algorithm, their formula for searching was better. They truly believed it. And you got a sense of that. I went to an early seminar in Silicon Valley. This is 2000 to listen to them. By this point, Google is about 200 employees. And these guys they oozed search engineology. I loved it. I didn't even understand search engines and the math behind it, but they explained stuff and they lived it and they breathed it. So it's 33 after the hour, your hour and my hour, and I'm on for about 40, 45 minutes. So let me hush, and if you have questions, you can put it in the chat column on the right-hand side of your Zoom screen, or you can ping me. The floor is open. Excellent question. So has COVID-19 affected my business in any way? And are your services more in demand right now or not? So three-part question, and I'll go to it. COVID-19 we live on an island. There's nowhere to go. So we actually have very few cases and very few deaths now. But that's because we cut off almost all flights. About 95% of the workforce must stay home. They're arresting people and giving them citations for going out at unauthorized hours. It sounds rather almost as if it was a communist state, but it's keeping the numbers of infections down, which is wonderful on an island. Has it affected our business? Oh my God, yes. Because nobody wants to give a grant or a project to somebody living on an island that can't do anything. Bummer. And then in terms of my particular services, right at the moment, it's not as popular. That is, people are still worried about, sorry, just gonna take care of this. And people are genuinely interested in their own families, their children. In Hawaiian, we call them keikis, and the safety of their keikis. So using Peter Young and company, yeah, they don't using it a lot. But I see an upsurge in June, in part because I listened to my previous customers and I've continued on the relationship. I had lunch with a guy that I potentially will have 3 or 4 contracts when things start to free up. We had a great lunch. We didn't talk about business at all. We just talked about the ocean and sailing. Great question. How long is the pitch? And I didn't really talk about that. So there's really kind of, I think, 2 kinds of pitches. The first is what we call the elevator pitch. You should be able to create a pitch that talks about all those elements I went through in the length of an elevator ride. So that's going to be about 35, 40 seconds from top of the tallest building to the bottom. You should finish your pitch by the time the doors open. That's pitch number one. Pitch number two, especially for angel investors and bank investors, is going to be really no more than 6 to 7 minutes, tops. You go over that and you've lost them. So those are the two kind of pitches that I would recommend you really strive for. Short and sweet, and then one that's about 6 or 7 minutes long that does the same thing. So Katrina, should you start a pitch with a question or with a narrative statement? I like the statement, actually, personally. Here's where I will be. Here's where we always talk in the we sense. Here's where we will be in 10 years with this product or like products from our company. Really? Wow, you're thinking down the road. Cool. Does it have to be 10 years, by the way? No, it doesn't. It can be 1 year. But I would say be declarative right up front. Next one, Lutz. What's the best way to finish your pitch? Is it a question at the end of a good idea? So, yeah. That's a tough question. I mean, you want to demonstrate stability, you want to demonstrate love for your product, and you want to make sure that you bring them in as a customer. So if they're kind of, well, it sounds kind of good, that's why I said at the close, your last question might be, what's it going to take to become a customer? What do I need to do to make sure that you buy the product down the road? And that puts them in a strange, well, you know, if you made all your packaging out of biodegradable material, that'd be great. We've thought about that, but maybe we need to speed that up. Thank you very much. So you kind of end it with a question and then follow it up with a statement. And then Katrina asked then, what is something wrong that everybody does? Okay, so number one, you don't practice your pitch. You actually have to speak out loud into a mirror or your business mate and actually articulate every single word in your pitch. You have to practice it. Someone has to time you. So you really need, so people fail on the longer pitch. They will go in 7 minutes and the angel investors will go ding, time's up, thank you very much. And you're going, but, because you haven't finished. You didn't practice the timing. So that's the thing that almost universally people don't do, and that they will it screws them up. Christophs, let's see. What do you think that's in the future when the COVID pandemic ends? The customer values of different companies will change. Yeah. So let me address that from kind of a slightly different angle. I can tell you that where I'm working, we're already looking at post-COVID-19 epidemic. We're looking at how we do business, for example, in South Korea and in Vietnam differently now because of COVID-19. So we're looking at today's lessons, even though we're locked down, and saying, all right, we know we're going to go back into South Korea. What do we have to change? So the first thing that we're doing is that it's called tabletop exercises. So you get people in the company around a table and you throw out scenarios and people have to act, react, and interact. to that, and I can do a tabletop via Zoom if Paula would like to do one with like 4 or 5 of you, and then everybody else would be observers. So you need to play out the future. So how is it going to be different? The customer is going to, especially in the United States, the customer is never been forced into this situation. We've never been forced into World War II. Everybody says, well, you know, we didn't have lots to eat. We didn't have lots to buy. Yeah, but you weren't locked down. You weren't, didn't have curfews. You didn't have military police everywhere kind of watching your every move. There was a lot of kind of freedom of movement and expression. Not a lot of food, not a lot of other things to buy. So now all of a sudden we're locked down. The food is starting to be snapped up. There's no toilet paper in the entire universe. And yeah, I think that people are going to start thinking about what they purchase, and they're really going to look for value a lot more. The value proposition is going to be much more important because people, and this is going to be important, and I think this is important for Europe also. I know it's true for Asia, and I know it's very true for Canada, the US, and Mexico. And that is, when this whole pandemic ends, people are going to have a lot less money in their bank account than they did pre-pandemic. I will share with you my plight right now. My retirement fund has dropped about $22,000 in value because of this pandemic and the stock market going down, etc. Will it go back up? The predictions are that it'll go back up. It'll go back up slowly. But people are going to hold on to their money a lot tighter, I think, for the next year, year and a half. They're going to buy things that they think are valuable, not just kind of fun, frivolous things. So keep that in mind. Keep the value proposition. Yeah, a company which produces disinfectants will be more in demand than, for example, an IT company. I would disagree completely with that statement. I understand where you're coming from, but disinfectants are real popular right now, but they've always been on the market. Clorox, an American company, makes these disinfectant wipes. Those have been around for like 45 years. So they're just popular right now. They're very important right now. But the product has been around for a long, long time. So all of the industries are going to be completely different. I'll give you another example, by the way, autos. I see in the United States, which is the largest auto market, China being number 2, that the demand for electric and hybrid cars will outstrip production probably for 3 to 5 years. Why? Because people don't want to, you can harness the sun, but you don't have your own oil well. And this is bringing that up on a regular basis. And so we're going to see a big increase in demand for certain products, but overall it's going to be okay. Which kind of market will be the most affected after? Well, my prediction is that food will stay relatively stable, but it'll be scarcer. Real estate is going to be considerably dropped down in value in Europe and in the United States and in Asia. I think we're going to see transportation probably going to have the biggest effect. You know, people are scared to fly in an airplane, not because the airplane is going to fall out of the sky, but now all of a sudden it's potentially you could just have one person with COVID-19 in that plane and the whole plane could get infected. Cruise ships. We've now had a total of, I think, 9 or 10 different cruise ships where people have caught COVID-19 and died. The cruise industry is just dying right now. It just it'll probably be a tiny fraction of what it is. And that goes for Europe, by the way, also. And so, and then I think the way people act and interact. I can tell you that in education, for example, I don't like this trend of online learning for everybody at all levels, because we're already discovering that elementary school children are not very good on computers and learning and sitting and paying attention. Middle school folks are not. All of you probably are very stellar students. And I can tell just by having the numbers here that you are definitely motivated. But I will ask, do you have any friends that are just kind of, oh, dude, you know, hey, and really don't want to do online learning? They don't like going to classrooms either. But so I think education is going to see a real change. I think RBS, for example, by the time you get and want to go to a good school, RBS should be at the top of your list. But RBS is going to start looking at the way it presents all of its topics. Some online, some hybrid, some you know, right there in downtown Riga. We're going to see a variety. What other questions? Let's see. Do you think that school systems will somehow change after the pandemic? Yes, I think that school systems, kindergarten through 12th grade, senior, and so forth, will change radically. I don't think the teachers are ready. I can tell you that right now. The teachers aren't ready in America, and the teachers aren't ready in China and Japan and Thailand. So I can't believe that they're ready in Latvia to go and do this radical shift because of the pandemic. But I do think that programs will have to change because there's a lot of people that like online, you know, because of the online learning. And you already said, okay, no, that's all right. No need to, sorry. All right, anybody else? I'm getting the smile from Paula.
No, you still have time. I just wanted to also come and see how the question's going. So it's an interesting discussion.
Yes. Any other questions? Well, all right. So here's the requirements. So I'm going to make my pitch and my close here. I hope this will be the second of 2 sessions with me. I hope that you liked the first one and this one. As I told Paula and Claudio that I'm very much available. I will get that list of books to Paula so she can get it out to everybody. Yeah, okay. And I wish you the best of luck even in these crazy times. Don't get discouraged by COVID-19. Continue to just plug away with your product and your pitch and the branding that's coming up and the communications. Don't forget your social media calendar. You calendar all of your events and so forth. And so my close to you is this. I want to stay your colleague and friend for a long time. What's it going to take? None of you are legally able to purchase beer, but in 1, 2, or 3 years, we'll go and have a beer. And you will buy the first one because you're the one who's going to be rich and famous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I'm coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii. I've got the official dress here, and you are always welcome. Thank you very much for all the questions and so forth. Yay, yay, yay. Thank you. And yeah, get a hold of me if you have other questions or you want me to look at something. Hey, Peter, is it possible you could take a look at blah, blah, blah? And I'd say, sure. Send me your Facebook company pages, and I'll go take a look at that also. And oh, don't forget LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very, very important, especially in North America. And to some extent, Germany, France, and England. And there's lots of Latvian colleagues there, but I mean, in terms of business. So, Paula, and do you have anything for me?
For you, just a big thank you. I mean,
no.
I think I was also taking notes on the other side of the screen. So thanks. I think it was really fun. There was a lot of information and also inspiring. So yeah, we'll definitely not leave you alone, and I'll keep inviting you to things now.
You got it. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful work week in your bedroom or in your living room, because we all have to stay home. And don't forget to wash your hands, all right? And make sure you wash your face. Be careful now. This disease is crazy.
Yeah.
Love you all. See ya. Bye.
Okay, guys, so send in your notes and then in Slack, and see you on Wednesday. Bye.